Introduction to oil and gas. You can hear me. I've shared my screen now, so I encourage us to just um, also follow through while I speak. Yeah. Um, the oil and gas is a very oil and gas in itself is a very broad area of study, and we will be starting first by looking at three major areas. Number one, we'll be looking at the origin, because this aspect we're looking at is on exposition, so it's the basic introduction to the oil and gas industry. How how do we derive this oil and gas? How is oil and gas formed? You understand? That's the first thing we'll be looking at. Then we'll also be talking about the exploration and production of oil and gas. And then we'll be looking at why oil and gas is important. You know? So these areas will cover course for this period. First of all, talking about the origin of oil and gas. How do we come about oil and gas formation? Oil and gas, the oil we're talking about here is not any other type of oil, but crude oil. As I believe you must know, or you already know. Crude oil basically is our oil and gas as it were, is a mixture of hydrocarbons. When we talk about hydrocarbons, we mean compositions that comprise of hydrogen and carbon. So here in this, you can see how it's formed. I believe many of us, or some of us, might have the basic chemistry from our old level days. We know about hydrogen and carbon elements. So these are the major components that make up oil and gas, and that's why they are usually referred to as what, hydrocarbon. Another name for crude oil specifically is black gold. That's a local name or a popular name for it. It's also referred to as black gold. So back to oil and gas and talking about hydrocarbons. The oil and gas are made up of a mixture of different hydrocarbons, different hydrogen and carbon atoms coming together to form molecules. They are the basic components that make up oil and gas. Now, as the name suggests, as I said, we have large molecules of hydrogen atoms attached to um, the backbone of carbon. Now, here, what you're seeing in this um, background, I believe you can see my background very well. On this material, you have the black molecules there, or the black elements there, representing the carbon atoms, and the white representing the hydrogen atoms. You see the way they are bonded by sigma bonds, and in some cases we also have some um, some sigma and pi bonds. Those are the basic bonds that are um, responsible for attaching them together. All right. So now, how do we get come about the formation of of oil and gas, especially the crude oil formation? Usually, we have two classifications of what we call plankton. These plankton are responsible for the formation of oil and gas. Now, what happens usually? There, okay. First, we have two types of plankton. We have the plant plankton and the animal plankton. You can see the pictures of how they look like. Okay, these are plant plankton and the animal plankton. They are now about 1,000, 10,000 of these bulbs in quotes, to fit into a pinhead. So just imagine how minute they are, microscopic plants and animals that live in the ocean, the depths of the ocean. So usually what happens is that they get compressed over time by they get compressed by the accumulation of, of earth and of soil. If you understand, if you did geography, you understand how the seabed looks like. Now, underneath the sea, you have different. You have like an earth layer there. Now, over time, over millions of years, these planting get compressed underneath, under the seabed itself, not just the surface of the bed, but inside, underground of the seabed itself. So they get compressed and they undergo what we call pyrotic disintegration. You know, like they get called decomposition, rather, pyrotic composition. That's under intense pressure and heat. They now get to form the they decompose to eventually form what we have as our hydrocarbon or crude oil. Now, in the oceans today, we see some of these plankton. I hope you can hear me. In the oceans, we have some of these planktons coming together. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. I hope I'm clear here. I'm saying myself. All right. So as I was saying, we have these planktons found where the ocean currents rise to the surface. You know that when we say ocean currents, we're talking about the movement of the water bodies in the oceans. Okay. Now, the plankton, because as I said earlier, they are usually animals, micro animals and plants. Two different types. Remember, they form together. They come together to form, or they decompose when they die to produce what we have as hydrocarbons of carbon. Okay. Now, the bloom of certain plantain is usually called dinoflagellate. Dinoflagellate, and it usually gives the water one kind of red coloration in some areas that are likely to be rich in this oil and gas. Okay, so these are hydrocarbons. All right. So, what usually happens on the seabed is that when these plantains die, they remain down on the seabed. They now form an organic mulch. That organic mulch is, if you see how these people, if you can see this picture, that's what it's representing, you know. Now, as they die, they slowly settle to the seabed where they now form the organic mulch. Now, usually these are lots of animals living in the sea. There are a lot, as in millions, over hundreds of millions or billions of them that we find in the sea. Now, if there are animals on the seabed, these will feed on the organic particles usually. Okay. So, but when they die, you see them. You see how the seabed looks like, different strata or different layers. So it gets to start decomposing in that seabed. Now, that um, sediment, which usually sediment here, which usually contains more than 5% of organic matter than other plants or animals, is usually or eventually forms a kind of rock that is referred to as black shale. Take note of those words, black shale. Okay. So if there is little or no oxygen in the water when the animals can't survive, the organic mulch accumulates. You know, when I mentioned the term earlier when I said aerobic, aerobic decomposition. Now, what that means is that in the absence of oxygen, and we have to, when you have decomposition occurring in the absence of oxygen, we refer to it as what? Aerobic dissociation, decomposition. Now, what happens here is that under certain temperatures, the temperatures over here may not be exactly the same at all times. So we have different temperatures, and the different temperatures determine the formation that we have at this particular time. Okay, the different temperatures determine what the kind of formations that we have at each particular time. Now, at our stage. Now, the black shale is buried and it is heated, as I said earlier, but there's a lot of the high temperature that it experiences. When black shale is buried, it gets heated. Now, what happens is this: within this range of temperature of within the range of temperature of about 30 degrees Celsius, organic, organic uh, matter that is formed. Just hold on, there's something on that left also show. Okay, let me just go on. I'll come back to that. There's organic matter. Organic matter is first changed by the increase in temperature to what we call kerogen. Now, the kerogen is a solid form of hydrocarbon. That's the first stage. Then the next we are going to have, as the temperature is increasing, we have the liquid state, and we call that the oil. So it's the liquid state we call the oil. The kerogens are usually solid forms of the hydrocarbon. Taking into account solid forms of hydrocarbon, they are the first stage of formation of hydrocarbon that gets us our oil and gas or crude oil. Gas. So we have that as kerogen, not kerosene, kerogen, Keroge. Okay. Now, the next step is where we have our oil formation, at around about 150 degrees Celsius upwards, we have the formation of gas. I'll take that again, we have the formation of gas. So eventually you discover that we're having three basic components of the hydrocarbon formation, which is the kerogen, the oil, and the gas. I'll take that again, the kerogen, the oil, and the gas. Now, each of them have their various range of temperature. So within 30 to 90 degrees Celsius, you have the formation of kerogen. Within 90 to about 140 or 150 degrees Celsius, you have the formation of oil, of liquid, which we call the oil, as that, and eventually gets as crude oil. And then we also have the gas formation when the temperature gets to um, 150 degrees Celsius upward. Now, one other thing that is worthy of note is that the rock that the rock, usually these are rock formations. If you remember in O-level geography, the formation of rocks, what those of us that we have done geography in our O-level, we know rocks can be formed from especially sedimentary rock, the accumulation of organic matter over a long period of time. Now, the kind of rock that is able to give us, which is under the seabed that we're able to get the oil and gas from, is usually referred to as source rock. Source rock. Source. 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 Source rock. I believe you can see on screen from wherever you are. So, we've talked about how oil and gas is formed, the organic matter that is responsible for the formation of oil and gas. We said that it's as a result of the decomposition of organic matter known as planktons. Planktons, we have a zooplankton, which is the animal plankton, and we also have the plankton, or plant plankton, which is the plant type of planting. These are organic matter. Okay, so we've said the different stages, we've talked about the different stages of their formation. Okay, um, now the migration, talking about migration, how this thing move and all that, as eventually we get our um, we're able to reach this naturally occurring product. Now we have the hot oil and gas, which is usually less dense than the soft rock in each of us. The hot oil and gas, because it is less dense, so we are likely to see it at a higher level when we start drilling. Now, typically, this is what happens. When the coal gas and oil and gas is formed, let just quickly explain it. When we have the formation of oil and gas, first of all, we cannot source it. When we cannot, we cannot get them out just, it doesn't just come to the surface flow. There's nowhere you go to where you just see oil and gas going to the surface of the earth by itself. No, it doesn't happen. It's a miracle for us. Okay, so what is usually done in the oil and gas industry is that some regions will have this product. Now, three stages are quickly just mention five before now. First of all, the exploration. Exploration is the first stage where we have to locate where these things are, or where these oil and gas products are. That's what is usually done. Exploration. Then after exploring and discovering these locations, we do this by using small of seismic data. Okay, we still get to hear more of this in the course of this program. And then we have another stage that is called the after exploration, then we have the drilling. The drilling process is what helps us to bring oil and gas to the surface. The drilling process is what helps us to bring the oil and gas. Okay, now, some tests are usually done. That's the whole course on its own also. And then we have the refining process, uh, and transportation and storage up to where we get to utilization. These are different stages in the oil and gas industry. I'll come on to that later on. Okay, so now hot oil and gas, they are less than they are likely to be at a higher surface underneath the earth crust, or within the earth crust rather, underneath the ocean body. Okay, now we have oil and gas migrating up through the rock in much same way that the air bubbles of underwater diver rise to the surface. So you know how divers underwater divers, the way their air bubbles come to the surface, like in filters. So that's how we have the oil and gas migrating upward through any crannies or little pores that are within this rock sediment, so rocks beneath the ocean body. Okay. Now, the rising oil and gas eventually gets tapped in pockets. So, because of the unevenness of the formation of these rocks, we already have some spaces like pockets or cavities within the rock. So these areas are where the oil and the less dense um, oil and gas migrates to, it migrates once it gets to, once it sees the cavity or that the state, that's all we refer to them as pockets, but they are really named called reservoir. So once it filters away, it migrates through pores. The moment they see a very accommodating space or cavity or pocket within the rock, it settles there. Eventually, that is what we now refer to as oil reservoir. That's the ones within the crust. So these are the places where we eventually drill to get this oil gas from. Okay, so they settle in these locations. Then we have oil and gas hiding somewhere until they get discovered by the explorers or the oil companies that are into E&P exploration and production. Okay, I'm sure you must have heard some companies, some multinational oil companies that uh, call themselves E&P. You may be wondering what the meaning of E&P. E&P means that they are into exploration and production. It's this kind of companies that will go to this location. You hear some people say they work offshore. They work offshore. Offshore. We still come to those terminologies. I'll explain some of the terminology or to understand better. So let me just quickly explain. I want to hear offshore and onshore. Those are the two classifications of the locations where we can operate in the oil and gas industry, where we can get either in any of these activities that as earlier mentioned, uh, operating. On the offshore aspect, those are the operations that are done on the sea. Then the onshore are the operations that are done on land. Take note of that. The offshore operations are operations that are done in the sea, and the onshore are the operations that are done in the land. Later on, when you go further in the study on higher levels, you still learn about the intermediary operation, which is swamp operation. Those are the type of operations that happen in the creek. It's more like an intermediary between land and water operation. It's not ocean, it's not completely land. They are creeks. The creeks are those locations that are found in the delta and ocean. Back to what we're talking about, the reservoir. So we said that this oil migrates to a point where they settle down and they are um, referred to as reservoir. Now, the earth is there's a little story on the origin of this whole thing. So we're discussing. And during the Mesozoic time, that in the Mesozoic time, uh, the times that are around about 150 million years ago, or 100 to 200 million years ago. And conditions were just right. That the by science science um, theory that conditions were just right to build huge thickness of black shale. Remember what we refer to as black shale, and such rock. Okay. Now the what main oil deposit found in warm shallow seas where plankton bloomed, but bottom waters were deoxygenated. This is just explaining what I earlier mentioned about the formation of this product. So this is an example of the black shale on the surface that you do not see. Now, there's what called the chimerid clay. Now, turmeric clay is a black shale, but it has up to 50% organic matter. A black shale that has up to 50% organic matter is usually referred to as the turmeric clay. You know, that's a real example of formed or that has formed the major oil places in the Jurassic clay. You know, um, it's, it's the main source of rock in the North Sea and oil province. Okay. Over here in our own region, we have we have the deep ocean, we see more of them in the deep ocean. But this is just one of the types we have in the world around the North Sea. Uh, but, um, quickly, I just want to emphasize on some areas before I round up. You know, this oil and gas production in itself is uh, is a form of energy that we use. And remember, we have, if you don't know, I'll just quickly say it. We have two forms of energy. We have the renewable kind of energy and the non-renewable kinds of energy. Now, our oil and gas is used as a non-renewable form of energy. Those are the areas. Non-renewable means that as you use them, they don't get renewed. Okay? Because the renewable forms of energy and other forms of energy that you bring them further. The most consume the freedom product of the youth directly. From so the world is going towards that aspect of trying to develop more of renewable forms of energy. That may also be explaining why the demand for crude oil will likely be diminishing over time. I believe many of us already know that at this moment, um, the price of crude oil is really dropping drastically. And if care is not taken, it will become free very soon. It's that bad, especially with the current pandemic situation. Alright. So, but we just hope that things going to pick up over the time once the period is over. Now, in terms of exploration and production, which I mentioned earlier, we have the rocks that some rocks that are permeable. Permeable means that it will allow oil and gas to freely pass through them. Then we have some that are impermeable. The impermeable ones, the rocks that are impermeable and block the upward flow of those are the ones that will block the upward flow of the passage of the oil and gas that I explained earlier. You know, so we have two types of rock basically, impermeable rock and the impermeable rock. Okay, now where those rocks encounter an impermeable rock, they get trapped. There will not be further rise of such. Sorry, when the oil and gas rather encounter any impermeable rock, they get trapped there. So there won't be any further rise from um, of those oil and gas upwards. So that point is what we, or we describe as the oil trap. That's what's called the oil trap. Okay. Um, this image here, or this picture here, explains that. I see the image, you see the dome of trap oil. They're already trapped at this point because they can't pass, they can't rise any further. Okay. Oh, quickly. Now, the reservoir rock, the permeable strata, or when we say strata, we're talking about layer in an oil trap is known as reservoir rock. Remember, I mentioned that those pockets where they eventually stay and refer to as reservoir. So reservoir rocks they usually have lots of interconnected flows which are referred to as pores, P-O-R-E-S. Now, they absorb the oil and gas at once. They just absorb it. So the oil and gas will just be keeping within the premise there, inside the rock or the earth crust. Okay, it's just a picture to depict that. That oil and gas may do things up in the um, I'll be for us and I'll I think you can see that
And tell me that I call it out. So I'm about to call you the assignment for the class. Engineer Emma just had some issue with his internet, so I will be helping him to call the assignment. So please let us write it out. Okay, I'm listening. Number one, define the following terms. Number one, define the following terms. A, shield rock. Okay, shake. Okay, okay. S H A. Okay, shield. Okay, 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 shield rock. Number one, define shield rock. A, clactins. That is, explain clactin. Okay, plankton. Okay, okay, plankton. 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 Yeah. Okay, please. Okay, you can go. So please send your assignment to engineer Ima, ENGINEREMA .jpts@gmail.com. So let me repeat the email for you. engineerima.jpts@gmail.com. Engineer is spelled ENGINERER. Ima is EMMA. There is no space between engineer and Ima. .jpts@gmail.com. Thank you. This okay, the subject should be assignment 100 left. That should be the subject. Ensure that you properly subject it so that you don't have the assignment thrown into the trash. So that will be the end of this class. Thank you and God bless you all.